Hey guys, welcome back. It's your favorite Gimp of the Limp, and I am finally here with the final part of the review through I've been doing here on Fields of Fire 2. First off, let me apologize that I did get held up. Unfortunately, Gimpy's gal ended up in the hospital. She ended up having to have some emergency surgery done, so obviously I got stuck in the hospital with her, and she had just had the baby on top of it, so we had to arrange childcare and help for her, and a whole bunch of other stuff was going on with that, so we got stuck in the hospital for about another week, which obviously held me up from getting this last video up for you guys. But we're home. She's doing better. Baby's doing good. Everyone's doing well. We do appreciate y'all's well wishes for everyone involved. So we're going to jump back into Fields of Fire. We've been doing a little playthrough of the game to show you as many of the different aspects of it as we could, kind of showing off some of the mistakes and the complexity of this game, to save myself doing multiple videos because I want to finish it in this video. We're going to skip ahead to the part that you guys haven't seen so far, which is vehicle combat. So we're going to do some vehicle combat here real quick just to show you how that's done, how the steps are worked out, the whole nine with that. If you're following along at home, make sure that you remember for this mission that you do have extra potential contact markers that do come out. You'd have to resolve later if you're playing along like that. Hopefully you guys haven't been waiting on me too long. The previous video we had got through getting our commands up and doing all that good stuff. We're going to skip this portion here about the higher HQs, and we're going to get down to the mutual vehicle and aircraft base because we didn't do much with that previously. We didn't really have a whole lot of vehicle combat, but I want to show you guys what it looks like when you have, a tank firing at another tank, because that's resolved completely different and during a separate step from the way infantry combat is normally resolved. So we need to take care of that. Okay, so for our purposes, we're going to say we're in our mutual vehicle combat phase, and this tank here, our little Sherman that's been activated, is going to fire at this Type 95 Japanese tank up on this direction. You're going to have a few different player aids out to take and keep track of everything that's going on. Obviously, you're going to need the vehicle and anti-tank weapons chart, and you're going to need to know what vehicles it is firing at what, because there's a whole lot of different modifiers depending on if you've moved or fired, if you have the ability to quick fire, what range you're firing at, what your defensive value is, what your target's defensive value is. So we have a Sherman, the 75mm World War II one, firing at long range, which is a +1 modifier, excuse me. Defensive value is not going to come in just yet. That would be them firing at us. And we're not moving and firing. We've already been in this position, so this modifier does not apply to us on this one. But it is quick shot capable, which means it can take an extra shot depending on the result that comes. We're firing at a Type 95 tank, and it has a defensive value of -2. That's one of the numbers that we do need to keep track of when we're conducting this combat. Now, just to reiterate again, remember, this is happening during this step of the sequence of play. We're not down into the volume of fire step that happens during, the infantry combat. But some infantry can fire here if they're firing anti-tank weapons. So there can be infantry that fire here, but it's situational dependent. Now, the other player aid you're going to need is your one that has the little fold out, has all the information in it. And at the bottom of that one on the back is where you have your anti-tank combat resolution and the modifiers that are involved. And at the top of this little chart, it gives you a little resolution for how you're going to do this for all the different modifiers. All right. So we're going to walk through this. Let me make sure I'm holding it so you guys can see it. All right. We have to calculate, just like before when you're doing combat, there's the net modifier because there's a lot of pluses and minuses that get involved, and then you draw a card to determine what the ultimate effect is. So our net AT modifier equals the gunnery modifier of the attacking unit. And grab it. So the first number that we're going to have, like I said previously, our gunnery modifier, which for our range, again, we're firing at long range, is going to be this +1. for our target. If we were firing at point blank range, we'd get a -3. Again, lower numbers are better. So this is a little bit of a penalty since we're firing at a fairly far distance. But +1 is the number that we're starting with. And then we're going to go on down. Defensive value of the defending unit. Now, you guys remember on that chart that I just showed you, the defensive value for this Type 95 tank is a -2. So we have a +1, and then we're adding to that a -2. So we're at -1 right now. Cover concealment modifier of the defender's terrain card. These terrain, or this row of terrain here in the airfield, is +0. So that's actually not going to affect us. So we're still at -1. And then the move and fire modifier, if applicable. It's not applicable in our situation, so we do not add that. If we had moved and fired, it would be applicable, and we would add a +2 at this moment. And then any of the following that apply. Target's not pinned, it's not incoming mine, grenade, airstrike. We are firing a heavy weapons type tank. It's going to be a +1 for our next modifier, so that gives us a 0. The target is not moving, and the fire is not pinned. So our total net modifier right now is a 0. Once we get done adding in the pluses and minuses and everything else that we've got going back and forth. Draw an action card and add the AT number on the card to the AT modifier to get a final sum. So we're going to draw ourselves a card here. And when we look at our card, down here, the AT number is a 7, which is actually bad for us. So let's scroll down. Actually, it's right here at the bottom. Then you're going to reference the number to the table below, and it's determined by what type of target. The H means helicopter, so if you're firing at a helicopter target or a vehicle target. For us, we're firing at a vehicle target. Anything 6 or more is going to be a miss, so there's no effect as far as that's concerned. Below that, it does list down that if the unit is quick shot capable, which is also on that other chart, it tells you yes or no for that. If the result is a -4, -2, 0, 2, or 4, then the unit gets to attack again. So if you hit one of those numbers, you get to redo these steps all over again for that. One of the things that I think they should have included here when we're doing this type of combat is a little bit better explanation of the results that happen. And that is listed down in your rule book on page 48, combat results for vehicles. And it tells you what those things mean. Brewed up, knocked out, retreating, pinned, or missed. Missed obviously is no effect. But for the rest of them, it tells you in there what happens to the vehicle depending on the type of result that you get. So again, once we looked at it and we had our little card here down there at the bottom right, our AT number being a 7, total gave us a 7. Unfortunately, let's look at some of the other cards. Let's see, 7, 0. Yeah, it would have been better if we had a 0. That would have given us a 0 for the result. And a 0 for the result would have been knocked out instead. There's a little briefing right here on the anti-armor table. Would be knocked out. And a knocked out result would have given you a replace the vehicle with a wreck marker and convert each crew and passenger step to a fire team and inflict a hit result on each. Resolve the hit if it was occurring during the combat effects phase. Place the teams under the wreck marker, but mark them exposed. And what they're talking about is there are these wreck markers like this, and on the other side is if it flames up. If you have a burning wreck, then you'll have this marker there. So just as an example, had we gotten a knocked out result on that Type 95, we would have replaced it with that marker that I just showed you. And then here on the chart, you would go over to crew steps and go down to whatever vehicle it is you see for this Type 95. That's 1 step. So there would be a 1-step fire team that does incur a hit or a hit result. You would see what happened to it. And then it would be placed under that marker. The rec marker with an exposed marker with it as well. So you see that vehicle combat is handled kind of similar, but a fair amount different than the way infantry combat's done, and then it's done during a different part of the game sequence itself. So you have to keep track of who's firing at who, what type is firing at who, how many steps are in the vehicle. I mean, just the vehicle combat alone is deep. Although it would be interesting to see a game based on the vehicle type combat, but in like the Eastern Theater Battle of Kursk or something like that, where it was a huge tank battle, going on back and forth, and having tanks fight instead of like the infantry company, and kind of see how that played out. Maybe something GMT can look into. Now, I know I haven't shown you guys absolutely everything that comes with the game. There is a lot more to it when we get into helicopters and other types of combat and mines and artillery, and it would just take me 5-6 more videos to show every little aspect that comes from the game. But I'm hoping I gave you a good enough general gist that you could decide whether or not this is the type of game that you would actually be interested in. Now, obviously, with this being a solitaire game anyway, and war game, it's already going to have a niche market, but I think it's even more niche than that with how complex and deep it is. That's one of my biggest faults with the game, is the fact that it was rated as middling as it was, a 5 on the complexity scale, because it really doesn't come across that way. That's part of the reason I left in is many of the errors that I made as we were doing this playthrough, because I wanted you to see, how it comes across with someone who's had some experience. Now, do keep in mind that my memory is not great. I did have a head injury when I was in the Marines, so my memory does tend to hit and go, and I'll forget a step or some little minor aspect of a game more often than your average player will. With this, though, there just are so many little nitpicky things that you have to keep track of as you're going along. The different types of commands that you're pushing through, and the fact that if you push, this guy forward under this circumstance, he gets an expose, and if it's this circumstance, he doesn't. And then how many cover markers are in this place, and what's the terrain modifier, and then what color border does the card have? How far away is the enemy? Is there a potential contact? Where are they going to spawn? Are they even going to spawn on the map that was originally created, or is it even going to add extra cards to the table? And then on top of all that, you have to worry about what type of weather and the contact level that's going on. There's just so many little things that you can forget and easily mess up as you're going along, that I want you to understand that it's just one of the deepest games that I've played. But like I said previously, I don't think there are many games out there, any that I can think of off the top of my head, that show better the command structure for small unit leadership in a combat situation. And that's really the crux of this game, is getting the information from on high down to the troop level, getting that order from battalion to the CO, to the platoon commander, to the squad leader, down to the individual squad itself, to the individual guy who's actually pulling the trigger. That is what this game is really all about, and doing it in the way to mitigate your losses while maximizing the enemy's losses. Now, of course, you can't account for everything. The way the deck of cards works, it's similar to dice. It's randomized, so sometimes luck's just going to be against you. But that's what this game does well. And if that's what you want to experience, that's obviously the reason you get this game. If you want something light or hex-based, absolutely stick away from it. This is not going to be for you. If you don't like deep games, if you don't like a game where you're going to have to be digging into the rulebook fairly often, avoid it, because you will have to look into the rulebook. Unless you've sat down and played through a handful of games, really have a firm grasp. Even if you've played 3-4 games, more likely you're still going to be going into that rulebook, pulling out the little details here and there just to make sure you're still on point. Speaking of which, I would have liked to have seen more player aid material. Some of their information could have been added to the player aid, like I was showing you as far as what happens for each of the individual results for a vehicle being hit, knocked out, brewed up, whatever it is. That information could have been on a player aid. I hope I'm not missing it, but I didn't see it anywhere. So you guys let me know if I'm I'm wrong on that. I would have liked to have had more information on the player aid, but there's so much information that you need that if they had a player aid for every little thing that happens in the game, you wouldn't be able to take and fit it all back in the box, which is another thing that I'm like, is the 2-inch box is just insulting at this point. They knew from Fields of Fire 1 that this game needs at least a 3-inch box, if not a bigger box or 2 boxes with everything that comes in it. So shipping out Fields of Fire 2 in a 2-inch box was just a bad idea. I don't know if it was a cost-saving measure or what, but it would have been so much better for the consumer had they taken that step to give us a bigger box. Now, one other question that I've seen asked, I don't want to drone on too long, but I have seen this question asked a few different times, is if you have Fields of Fire 1, do you need to get Fields of Fire 2? Does it add enough to be worth the extra purchase if you're not like a hardcore war gamer that's Pokemon and this crap and has to own all of it? The answer for that one would have to actually be a no. There are new aspects to the game. There are new types of terrain cards, new types of units, obviously, that are in this game that aren't in the previous one, but the core gameplay itself is really no different. Like I said, it's just a small amount of changes, like terrain and units, that really doesn't justify it if you're not looking for it specifically for the Marines or those changes. Now, with everything that I've just pointed out, some of you might think that I'm hating on the game, and I truly, truly am not. Like I've said before, the components are great. The cards are great. It's GMT quality, so you're not going to ever hurt for the quality of the actual material that you receive. I'm just trying to be as honest and forthright with you guys as I can be about the complexity level and the deepness and the difficulty of this game, so you know clear-headed what you're getting into, what you're stepping into when it comes to this type of game. But if you've watched my previous couple of videos and you've seen the general gameplay that I butchered horribly, I appreciate you guys, sticking with me on this. It's a slog trying to live play this for you guys. It really is a slog trying to do that. But if you've watched those previous videos and this looks like something that'll be up your alley, I wholeheartedly recommend it, with the understanding that there is no other experience out there like it. Like I said, the core of this game comes down to commanding your troops in the best way possible. And there simply is no other game out there that will give you that feeling like Fields of Fire. So if that's what you're looking for, 100% wholeheartedly, totally recommend it. The way that the command system works, and especially the way the deck of cards work when it comes to doing everything. I love seeing a deck of cards being used to randomize things rather than dice. Another game that comes with 2, 4, 6, whatever, 6-sided dice. I'm so tired of 6-sided dice. They come with everything. Do something else. Do 10-sided, 8-sided, 12-sided, or a deck of cards. Do something different. Not very many games do. I don't know if they get 6-sided dice in bulk or what, but damn, do something else. But yeah, if you want that unique experience, absolutely go for it. You won't be disappointed. You will be scratching your head over the mistakes that you make in learning the system and organizing all the counters that come with it, but it's worth it in the end for the experience that you get. All right, but that's going to be it for me. Again, sorry I couldn't show you every little thing that comes with Fields of Fire 2. There just is so much, so I wanted to give you as much of the base gameplay itself, the core experience, so you guys could see how the game is going to play itself. But that's going to be it for me. I do appreciate you guys sticking with me for this slog, and you guys let me know down in the comments what you think, any concerns, moans, bitches, gripes, or complaints that you got, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Y'all take care.